Welcome, everyone. This is Five Needles, and you're listening to LOTRO Players News, where we take a look at latest in LOTRO and hear LOTRO players. And this week we have with us Sanswinda
Hello.
and Krister.
Hello.
Hello there. And it looks like we had a busy little week this time. So let's head into our news this week, where we had first the inevitable bug fix patch after the major release. This time we have update 30.3.1, which was released on Wednesday, October 20th. First off, for classes, brawlers no longer need to exit and re-enter a hotspot in order for their plant feet buff to begin stacking. I'm not sure I understand what that means.
It sounds like a bug.
Well, yes, but what does they mean by hotspot?
So there is basically a little mark you can put on the ground, and as long as you stay within the borders of that mark, you get, I want to say like a tactical mitigate. You get bonuses basically for staying there. So it must be. The stacking thing's kind of interesting. I wonder if it's. I just don't know enough about a brawler at this point, but I do know that that's a target, basically almost like a captain's banner. They throw it on the ground. You stay in that square. You get the benefits.
So in other words, it's a skill that I haven't reached yet.
Right.
Then let's look at items here. Corrected an issue that could allow players to level up their legendary traceries beyond the level cap of 449. Players who leveled up their traceries above 449 will have their traceries set to level 449 and their excess mithril spent refunded when the affected character with the items logs into the game.
Good. That's much better than you lose your mithril, which has not been the preference.
Right, so they taking care of that. Keeper is now an allowed name for legendary items renaming. I guess a lot of people were calling this their old name plus Keeper because this is when they'll be keeping.
I wonder what the problem was originally then with it as well.
Yeah, I don't know. That's an interesting question. Because I can't think of what could possibly have been wrong with that word in the past. Because what about the word keeper? Could they have? I guess I'm just.
It's probably something really silly too.
I'm sure. I'm sure it's something silly. We've seen some rather silly things being filtered out in the past. I mean, after all, they filter out the word needle, so. A currency cap warning has been added to the Valor packages that give ancient script to explain what happens if you redeem the package and acquire enough ancient script to take you above the cap. Also, Runekeepers will now get traceries from chests. Okay, the Runekeepers are happy about that. Traceries are all now bound to account. The class requirement on some brawler set gear has been corrected. Just imagine, here's your brawler set gear. Yes, it can only be used by guardians. That's sort of like the weird thing that could happen. Old Runekeeper satchels can no longer be equipped at the same time as new legendary items. Alright, so be in line with other items of that ilk. And some incorrect values for old legendary item fifth skill critical chance imbued legacies have been corrected. Obsolete imbued legacy replacement scrolls will now disenchant into currency that can be used on new legendary items. And obsolete legacy replacement scroll boxes will now grant currency or items that can be used on new legendary items when opened. So apparently people didn't like the old obsolete imbued legacy replacement scrolls that they had. And also, for quests and adventure areas, characters who completed Volume 2, Book 1, Chapter 10 on a dwarf or hobbit will now be able to continue the legendary item quest chain and pick up Chapter 11 Forged Anew. Some characters who had Volume 2, Book 1, Chapter 10 or 11 underway may still be unable to acquire or reforge their legendary items. Players who encounter this issue will need to contact customer service in-game for assistance. Now, the reason why this affected dwarves and hobbits in specific is because that's the one that sent elves and men to Rivendell and dwarves and hobbits over to Thorin's Gate in order to get that. I guess the idea there was to split the crowd when Moria was first being opened up. And now they updated it so that now everybody gets sent over to Rivendell, but of course that left a cold stop if you were at a certain point and were playing a dwarf or a hobbit.
I wonder how many people will go back and do that.
We'll go back and do that.
Pick it back up if they're curious to do it again, or I mean, if they want to go back.
Well, that all depends because it's the trouble is getting into Moria. You can't get into Moria until you finish that.
That's really annoying then. what a frustrating change. I was thinking it was a height requirement that basically wasn't that they were getting sent to Thorin's Gate.
Well, keeping dwarves out of Khazad-dûm would be a rather cruel thing to do.
That would.
I mean, it might be better for their safety, but still, that would be pretty cruel.
Yes. Now, it so happened that I had a character that had just finished chapter 11, I believe. And that's right. Had finished chapter 11, thus managed to complete all that quest. And so my next step then was to be sent back to Echad-Dunan. So I happened to finish right at that point where there weren't any troubles at all. Except for the fact that I had this reward from the first half of the quest, which was the old legendary item. And of course, the next chapter then sends me into Moria where I gained the new legendary item. So I had one old and one new as a result of that. Fortunately, an appraise button and a trip to Rivendell took care of it.
Now that pretty much means you're ready for marriage, right? Something old, something new. Something borrowed. No.
And all things blue. Oh,
wait. Everything blue, right. Right. And as for miscellaneous changes, we've made a server configuration change for Arkenstone and Langeville that aims to address a possible issue with game performance. We'd appreciate feedback you wish to provide following the change. It looks like the feedback so far is that it's not any worse than it was before, and the reason why they chose Langeville and Arkenstone is those servers are experiencing a little bit of lag, but they weren't the worst ones because they weren't sure if it would make things better or worse. They had to have someone who had enough lag so that they could get a measure on if it helped any, but not so bad that it would be impossible to tell if it made things worse. Because I think that if they sent it to the worst hit servers, I think they feared that how will they know whether or not things became worse if things went on to there. So they're hoping that because of this in here, that it's good enough at least, and it's not making anyone worse, so that now they'll try to propagate it to the other servers and hopefully help the servers that are currently experiencing the worst lag. We can only hope.
Have you guys noticed any performance differences as you've been out and about?
Mm, well, let's see. I don't think I normally get hit with. I think it's usually only during the field trip where I usually notice, which of course is on Arkenstone, but on Langeville, I don't normally see too much lag over there.
Yeah, Langerval hasn't been bad at all lately, so I would
Okay, so
chalk it
so
up.
yeah, so it could be that they had them at two different stages, but I know that Arkenstone is notorious sometimes during the field trip of having some bit of trouble on there, so that might be one of the reasons why that one was selected there. I didn't think I noticed. I think I noticed one lag spike last night, but I think that was the only one I noticed yesterday.
Well, that'll be extremely nice to see that. I mean, if they can do whatever they can to eliminate
Yeah,
the latency that's just generated by LOTRO,
yeah,
and then we just have to deal with our internet latency.
yeah.
Then,
That's the other problem. Is it because there's so many different ways in which lag can happen,
oh
and
yeah,
one of the troubles is that usually the hardest hit servers are partly hard hit, probably because it's probably a combination of the Lotro natural lag plus the fact that most of the users of some of the hardest hit servers are overseas,
yep.
Europe, and therefore it looks like that there are one or two bottleneck spots where most of the internet traffic coming between the US and Europe seem to go through, at least from the point of view of Lotro, and that tends to be another potential source of lag. So you got that lag plus that lag plus that lag gives you horrendous lag. So we can only hope that all the sources of lag that are coming from standing stones are dealt with, and someday, then maybe we can worry about what we can do for the rest of the world.
Exactly.
Let's then head into Bulwer Update 31 Beta 1. That's right, we just had a release for Update 30.3, but now it's time for Update 31, where they're testing that up. And these were the first looks at Gundabad and also at the uh, oh yes, of course, PvP changes are also the things that are being looked into in there. Items of note: itemization, including crafting, work is still in progress, so therefore they were not expecting itemization to be perfect. Just to warn you about that. The deed log does not track Gundabad deeds properly, so they didn't quite finish up getting the deed log up and running. And both the Brawler and Gundabad areas should be accessible to all accounts that have pre-ordered the Fate of Gundabad expansion. If you have not pre-ordered, you can purchase preview-only access to the Gundabad area and the Brawler class through the Lotro stores. Probably one of those special nominal cost ones that use the Lotro points inside of Bulwer. So, of course, you can open up the Lotro store in Bulwer and search for either Gundabad or Brawler, and the appropriate offering should be presented. Now, Update 31, Fate of Gundabad, Legacy of Durham. The first two quests, the Legacy of Durham and the Trials of the Dwarves, will allow you to enter Gundabad. Be sure to have completed Chapter 4.9, Lord of Gundabad, and then speak with Prince Durham inside of Nakarfu. So they opened up chapters 5.1 and is the chapter 5.1 first two quests of that, or 5.1, 5.2? Can't remember what that was. The idea here is they opened up those first two quests so that you could complete them and get into Gundabad. The rest of the Legacy of Durin, of course, is not yet open because they like to save that for when they have the real release. So they avoid spoilers on it, but they had to open up enough of it so that you could actually get inside a Gundabad. And then they talk about Gundabad itself, the various areas that are in there. And they also speak of allegiances and missions in here. And Here, in addition to the Longbeards, the Jaruka dwarves of the east have an ancestral claim to Gundabad and the surrounding lands. King Durin II offered succor to the Jaruka dwarves, who had lost their home in the same destruction that had caused berg breaking at Gundabad. Now, a number of Jaruka have made common cause with Durin to aid in reclaiming of Gundabad and to make Gundabad their new home. What Durin the whatever thinks about this, of course, is a completely different matter. In the new Jaruka allegiance, based out in the halls of Vernozal in Gundabad, brave heroes pledged their loyalties to Prince Ingor and the Jaruka clan as they seek to reclaim the Three Peaks for the dwarves. Once pledged to the Jaruka clan, Prince Ingor and those loyal to him will need assistance in completing the missions to aid the Gundabad. So the missions are going to be tied to the allegiance system for the Jaruka. And since the missions have a prerequisite of being in the allegiance, then that means the allegiance for the Jaruka will be available at level 20, as opposed to in the past where I think the original allegiances required you to be 110.
Yeah, because everything started in Mordor.
Right, in Mordor here. So this one, now since they know what they're going to do here then is that there is now a new menu item called Character Allegiances, and you can access your allegiance panel through that new menu item. So you can put that onto your start menu, Character Allegiances, and then you can check on the Jaruka tab. So there's a new panel because you have one panel for the Mordor ones, and now you have a panel for the Jaruka. And you click on Join, and then you can travel to the halls of Vernazal in Mothgar to speak with Prince Ingor. And of course, the usual goats that can take you to, I guess, that could take you to the other allegiance locations will now be able to take you now to this new location, to the allegiance hall for the Jaruka.
Now, Pine Leaf, I just want to say, when you say a usual goat, I can't help but think of a Moria goat, which of course is drunk and swerving all over the place. That's what I think of when I hear a usual goat.
Okay, well, hopefully they'll be a little bit more sober on there. Actually, I think, anyway, do you actually ride on anything when you go to the mission people, or do they just port you there? Can you remember that?
I thought you were just ported, but
Yeah, I think you're just ported anyway. So it's a very unusual goat in that it's very, very fast, and you don't ride out. Yes. Once you have joined the allegiance with the Jaruka clan, then you have access to an all new set of missions. You can complete Chapter 1, The Rightful Claim of Prince Ingor. So you speak to Prince Ingor, and that'll start that particular set of quests, and you can head to the Scoutmasters afterwards, near the mission recruiter stable masters in the hall of Verzona, and they are the same two people that you worked with when you were when you're at Corfu. So those two are back, so I am sure that there will be plenty of missions that are going to involve explosives, if you remember if you remember Ozma.
I do like blowing stuff up.
Yeah. And also, the Den of Puchlok, which is a 3-player instance. Please note that this instance is a work in progress. This instance will feel very easy right now, as the monster progression stats from level 131 to 140 are not yet in. Itemization for this instance is incomplete, and Discovery Deed has been bypassed for this beta run. You should be able to access the instance in the Instance Finder during the first forward, but looks like there will be a Discovery Deed associated with it later. So that is the Den of Pulak, and that is for a 3-player instance. Also, on top of that, they cleaned up the quest guide situation for Ior's and twice imprisoned in the Black Book of Mordor, updated several lore master skills to allow movement while casting. I'm sure the lore masters will be happy about that. Though there may be some skating for now until they get the animations all right. Updated several lore master pets with difficulty system properties that were missing. You can now join up to 15 private encounters per hour, an increase from 10.
Ooh.
That sounds
Yes,
nice.
Yeah,
that
that's
sounds nice.
yeah. We were having. It was kind of funny now that that clarifies a debate two of my teammates were having, where one was declaring, "Yeah, we can just keep doing these because the reset," and the other one was, "I can only do 10 an hour," and so it's kind of funny to think that that's going to be a moot point going forward. So
Yes, so when Gundabad gets released, there will be 15 per hour. You can now add up to 75 entries into your housing permissions panel. Adjusted the name of the scholar's abode in Erebor for accuracy. The Halls of Night Deed Raising Spirits no longer requires a minimum level of 65, so can now be completed on Legendary Worlds as long as your character is at the current level cap. I guess they're talking about the Legendary Worlds that are probably Treebeard is when they're talking about, because Treebeard currently has a level cap of 50. So the Sentinels Challenge quest, the Battle of Lorien, you should now always be available, no longer requiring server activity to unlock. They should have done this 5 years ago. Instance Eyes of Adoras and Instance Need for Words will now have their correct categories in the quest journal. Speckled Shell Fragment will now correctly be tagged as an ingredient and will go into crafting carry-alls. The class in Wildwood titles awarded by the Deed quests in Wildwood is now correctly displayed in French and German. Adventure Steelbound loot boxes now require level 131 or higher to open. That, of course, would be because of the new level cap that will be associated with. Level 121 to 130 coffers of Adventurer's Gear have been renamed to Fated Coffers of Adventurer's Gear. You can now spend up to 98 class trait points. Reaching level 140 will award 1 class trait point. Some weapons, most notably the Bow of a Glen Provider, now correctly decrease rather than increase induction times. That was a bit of a problem. When the in-game store is set so that it uses the system browser, the No button has been updated to cancel to reduce confusion. The captain skill, Cutting Attack, now has its own animation to distinguish it from other captain skills that were using the same animation. Increased most monster play melee skills to have 5.2 range to be on equal footing with the Free Peoples, but I should warn you that in the next Bulwer update, they're planning to have that only true for, I think, 2 of the monster classes, and the others are going to go back to their old range, I believe. The legendary item box now correctly offers these previously absent legendary weapons: Bjorning Great Axe, Hunter's Axe, Runekeeper Firestone, and Runekeeper Lightning Stone. Many of the ratings and gear values in the game have been rounded up to the 3rd significant digit for readability. What were they? Were they going down to 10 digits or something? Starter 3rd Age legendary items granted in the quest of a Weapon of the Elder Days can now be destroyed to remove them from your inventory. Oh, that's right, because because if you're trying to get rid of the original LI that you had after appraising it and getting a new item, it
Yeah,
gets you
because you could only get rid of it by deconstructing it, and then with the update you couldn't do that.
Yeah. Why couldn't you decon it? I think deconning was always a problem on those, wasn't it?
like
Because
with
I had no
imbued,
trouble deconning legendary items in general.
if they're imbued, I didn't. You can't decon them when they're imbued.
Oh yeah,
No,
imbued
not
one. Yeah,
imbued.
yeah, but this
But
yeah,
this
this
was
is
the
a
one.
non-imbued.
okay.
This was the first one that you got that was really hard to get rid of.
Yeah,
Oh, right.
that's because I think you had to bring it to camp before you could destroy it or something like that. So it was an annoyance. The broader toggle skills, aggressive posture and defensive posture, should no longer be cancelled when the brawler is stunned. And legendary items can now be reforged to item level 465. That is just meaning that's down up to the next level that we'll be using for Gundabad and on forward. And that's it for that. Of course, that is just the first round. There will probably be a couple more rounds of Bulwark before then because we've got 2.5 weeks before the scheduled release. So I will expect there to be 2 more Gundabad builds before the release. And if they don't have it right after 2 more builds, then well, we may see a delay announcement. We'll have to see about that. But that's it for release notes. Any comments on any of these?
I'm ready for good to bad to be good to good.
Okay. And if we go into the Orcish region, it'll be Gunda ugly.
Well, they probably don't think they're ugly. They're probably like Jawas. We look at Jawas and go, ooh, but maybe Jawas find each other beautiful.
Well, I suppose there's always that possibility. Let's then head into the LOTRO Beacon issue 223. First off, for the community spotlight, don't forget to redeem coupon code LOTROQuest 2021 through November 30th, 2021 to get all of the currently available quests for free. And you can read more about that at LOTRO.com. Remember, the coupon code is LOTROQuests 2021. Louis 7 has created 2 new videos for you to get more information about the legendary items. So watch this Getting Started video and traceries and upgraded videos on his YouTube channel. Red Baron has created a new LI system guide in easy to understand language, and you can check this out on his YouTube channel. The Easily Amused blog has a write-up on legendary items as well, and you can get their guide and tips over on the blog. And LOTRO Players has also created an LI guide, Read Squirrel's Guide, on their website. We talked about that last week. And Travel Window 2 is a plugin that creates a single window containing available travel skills. The plugin can be was updated this last week, and you can read more about that on the LOTRO forums. And that is Travel Window 2. So let's then look at the concert calendar where Goblin Fire from Brandywine, they held an adaptation of Andrew Lloyd Webber's Phantom. It says this weekend, so I presume that meant that was already held, but that's quite an undertaking. Phantom, Andrew Lloyd Webber's Phantom. Oh, okay. October 22nd, so it was on Friday and with a Saturday matinee at the Blue Theater. I don't see anything. Well, it was streamed on their Twitch server, so there's a possibility that it could still be archived over on Twitch if you want to catch that. And let's head into our weekly comment. Middle Earth gets into collectible card craze. What cards are they collecting?
Most
Pokemon.
awesome mounts you can't ride. Dragok features prominently, so do Mumox.
I don't know. I always felt like Gandalf had the look of a Pokemon player. I mean, like a dyed in the wool, very beginning, watched the cartoon from episode 1, got the first set of cards,
All right.
Or maybe I'm mistaken.
That's always a possibility. But then I'm trying to think. The collectible card craze. That's, I'm wondering. I would think, though, that instead of the collectible card craze, they would be more into living card games, such as, well, the Lord of the Rings living card game, for example.
Yes, I do recall there being an actual either Middle Earth or Lord of the Rings card game back when everything was card crazy with Magic the Gathering.
Yeah, I'm trying to think who was there a collectible card game on it?
Yeah,
Because I
yeah, I have them somewhere in my deep archives.
okay, I didn't know. Yeah, because I thought there might have been one at some point, but I don't think it lasted very long because
No, it
I mean,
didn't. Yeah, so hopefully that means they're valuable. See, that's
well, I don't know because
probably not.
I have a feeling that because most of the audience that would be interested probably jumped onto the living card game by Fancy Flight Games when that came
Right.
out. Let's then head into the fan site news, where last week we found mini Moonmox in Moria. And Deco de
I mean, I
Manu.
wanted to find Mini Moomax and Moria.
You wanted to find them? Well, yeah.
Well, that's where I came up with my concept of a Trojan Moomac filled with mini Moomacs. See, just roll that into a city and
A Trojan Mumak. All right. Deca de Malou has your guide to housing items for in the Harvest Mass Festival, and you can get pictures and info over on their website. Forever Jedi has a great guide to the Harvest Mass Festival cosmetics, and you get a walkthrough and images on the blog. Carrick Haverland Gaming helps you get the Shire Brewmaster title. You can watch the video over on YouTube. LOTRO Stream is your first stop to find LOTRO on Twitch. This week, the Tolkien Professor travels to Helm's Deep. Drew's Fire has a baby bouncing brawler, and Big Ed Mustafa runs a minstrel. And also on Twitch, Strimtarm plays the best brawler. Stina sets up allies for Minstrel, and Jebro Unity runs a brawler dwarf. And over on YouTube, Oculus Nerd has created a guide to roping threads. The Better Biscuits Bureau Kinship goes on a chicken run, and My Name is Gonz looks for the story coming with Fate of Gundabad.
chicken and biscuits sounds delicious.
And also, please note that the curator is going to be returning on October 25th. That will be on Monday and will be available from 10 a.m. Eastern on the 25th through November 1st. So if you want to get your curator needs, that is the time to do it. I have a feeling some people are going to be going out and getting hobby horses or something.
Probably.
I mean, that is the time to do it. And they're awesome.
It's all we'll see anymore. That would be honestly, the Rohirrim charge down the mountain would be much different if they were all on hobby horses. Or tricycles, maybe.
The charge of the Rohirrim on hobby horses. Okay. That could be like something that a group of recreationists will try to do where they weren't quite sure if they could train the horses on time, so they decided to use hobby horses instead.
You said we were getting real horses. We have to make do.
Let's then head into our store sales. And Krister, could you please read what's in store this week?
I certainly can. This week it's make your piece of Middle Earth shine.
Ooh.
So getting 20% off select housing decorations, select housing pet or sets, housing pets, that would be a nice one. Housing property writs, select cloaks, and that's going to be through the 28th. And then the weekly coupon is free regeneration food times 5. The coupon code is Nibbles, and that is good through the 28th as well.
Nibbles.
That makes me think of Tribbles.
Let's head into our site news, where the Bearded Minstrel has a couple of videos that he posted. The first on these is the Fate of Gundabad Zones Tour. It does not include any spoilers, but just goes through each of the zones and gives you a look at what they look like. So the Fate of Gundabad. So your first little look that you can have at that if you weren't able to get into Bull Roar. He also has a lore presentation, The Legacy of Durin's Folk Part 2, Dwarves of Erebor, where he talks about the history of the dwarves over there. So 2 new videos from the Bearded Minstrel. Let's then head over into our week in gaming. And Christopher, what were you up to?
Well, so this was for LOTRO. There was some excitement because we're starting to see some people get coming back. So hopefully with the release of Gundabad, we'll be able to muster up some raids. But we have definitely been having some fun with the 3-mans and 6-mans. And but a lot of thought been going into my legendaries, of course, because I initially configured them just out of the pure joy of actually figuring out how to do it. But obviously, I think I've been taking a much deeper think into it because with my main raider, my captain, my philosophy has always been high morale, heavy healing, and basically I'm helping myself survive. And so I got to a point where I was parsing my healing parse was the equivalent of or better than the primary healer that was healing me. And so I always thought that was great too, because if I was healing myself like that, then I'm going to live longer, bottom line, And so now I feel like I've really got an opportunity to enhance that with this LI system. I'm really liking it. I have to admit, I really like it. I'm just kind of bummed about giving up the, my little rant about giving up the LI, the legendary LIs. And then just thinking about all the story, like a complete collapse of an industry across Middle Earth, all these buildings, all these people, that were working in this industry now. What are they going to do? So that I've been doing that. And then of course, getting the ins and outs of the brawler. I just haven't had much of an opportunity to play him yet, but the important thing, and I think you guys will be relieved, is that I have managed to put together 2 really good outfits for the brawler, which for me is actually accomplishing everything I need to do. But also, unfortunately, with the brawler is the return of one of the most embarrassing things you can do when you Valar a character, which is have your horse level in front of a bunch of people who already had their horses level because they actually did the work and weren't lazy like you and Valared your character. So it is the return of horse grats. I'm very, very unhappy about that. But and then outside of LOTRO, I have just gone crazy. I used to play the old tabletop BattleTech and the Mech Warrior role-playing game back in the pen and paper days. And so I got picked up BattleTech and Mech Warrior 5, and I've been meching it out this week. So, Sans, how about yourself?
Well, I did some more testing of my new Hunter LIs and realized just how expensive these LIs were and was really unhappy about it when I was working on my Minstrel. And yeah, have to spread my gold around my characters a little bit more, I guess. But 15 gold per LI?
I think that literally ticked everybody off. I think everybody, I believe that is the main frustration I've heard with the
and what
new
if you were
LIs.
free to play? Like, you have a
Right.
2 gold cap. How are you supposed to have an ally? Oh man.
Yeah, that does sound weird.
Yeah, 15 gold. Like, maybe their gold cap needs to increase to 15. I don't know. But
Well,
that's a lot of gold.
agreed. Yeah. Yeah, especially I wasn't even thinking about free to play's cap there. Well, that almost doesn't make any type of sense. If at least make that the minimum cap then.
Like, yeah, I feel like they probably like tried to scale it based on level, because I noticed like my level 120 character only had to pay 13 gold. Only had to pay 13 gold. But I was like, okay, so like what do you have to pay as a level 50 character? Like, there's a reason that
Oh,
most of our stable rides are so cheap, because we have to cap it out at 2 gold or less, because that's all some people can carry in their wallet. Um, I don't know.
Well,
But
hopefully this
15
is
gold, like that's crazy.
that's the I guess the hope. Even though the damage is done, technically, the hope would be that this would be part of whatever they're going to be addressing as they're streamlining it.
Yes, I hope that's going to be addressed either by raising the gold cap or by refunding us some gold or something.
well, it's not going to be refunded. They might reduce it, but I don't think it's going to be refunded.
They could send us like a cool die or something. That would be cool. Um, but um, so yeah. I stopped adding allies to other characters for the moment, but at least higher level characters. But I did more testing on my hunter allies and had fun running some instances, and started leveling a new brawler on Shadowfax. And it is, of course, running at deadly difficulty, so didn't get super far, but it was really fun. And did some running around Air War, finishing some new content, or old new content, soon to be old new content, and celebrating Durham's Day with lower level characters, which is always exciting when the moose start chasing you. And I've also been enjoying some more Ark Survival Evolved, collecting some more dinosaurs, and advancing our technology. We actually have electricity and fridges, but we filled 4 fridges completely already. So clearly the answer is more hungry dinosaurs to feed. So, yeah, but that's been fun. We've got a new chemistry bench to play with, and have almost got enough stuff to craft some more advanced tech. So, Pineleaf, how was your week?
I'm going to begin with my honor warden, who silently entered into the tower of Kirith Ungol and learned, of course, all the wonders of a tower that is under siege by spiders. And fortunately, I finally finished all the quests in there, so I'm finally out of Kirith Ungol and out of Lingris and ready to go into the next land, which is now going, instead of being full of spiders, is going to be full of fire. Yeah, like that's going to be any better. My Langeful Brawler reached level 30 and completed another class quest, which is a bit of a follow-up to the first class quest. And then for Friday Night Fight, we ran the stairs. We first ran it at Tier 1. We just ripped through Tier 1 of the stairs. We then ran Tier 2. We managed to get by the first boss, which is better than we did last week. We managed to easily get through Tier 2. We got through them, then we came to the second boss, and of course, the second boss, you know what happens when you go to the second boss in the stairs. Half the group gets frozen and the other half gets ripped to pieces.
strips
Usual.
strips you of your confidence and self esteem. Yep.
Yes, that is probably a good way of putting it. That I don't like that boss. That's all I gotta say about that one. After that, and the disappointed that saying that even Tier 2, when we had the drop, what did it give us? It gave us a yellow, a yellow, uh, a yellow enhancement rune. Oh yeah, that's yippity wonderful. You were thinking how difficult that thing is. A yellow rune. So what we did then was we ran Sari Surma. I believe it was tier 2, level, I believe 122. And that gave us better rewards from the point of view of traceries and enhancement runes than we got from running the stairs on level at tier 2. And I'll tell you right now that going through Sarasirma at level 122 at tier 2 is a walk in the park. I think they need to tweak the reward system a little bit. I still think that one of the best ones, if you're looking for example, Cyan traceries, I still think the best bet is the Library of Steel, because but that's just my opinion on the matter. But we did get a gold tracery at the end of Sarasirma, so I I think I actually equipped the one in there, and I did find out that indeed that if you replace a tracery with another one, because before I had done the test of upgrading an existing tracery to a better one of the same one and had no trouble holding on to the points that you put into it, that even if you completely replace it with a new tracery, it will still remember any points you put into it, which is
Right.
good.
It's like it's the slot
Yeah,
is
it's the
level.
slot.
Yeah.
Right. It's the experience that you put into it seems to be associated with the slot rather than with the tracery itself.
Yeah, I agree. I really like that. So I think that's
Yeah.
a nice touch.
But anyway, I thought it was I decided to experiment with that to see if that was the case. And that turned out to be the case. And that concludes my week in LOTRO. Our top supporter this month is LOTRObuild.com. LOTRObuild.com is a collection of full LOTRO databases that includes an items database, a relics database, and a titles database. And also, you could use it right from your Discord server with LOTRO Build Bot. We currently have 16 supporters on Patreon, and if you'd like to join this illustrious rate of players and help support LOTRO players, you could go to the donations page where you could support the Players Alliance on Patreon. Your money will be used for podcast hosting, website hosting, and to pay for our live shows. If you wish to support us without joining Patreon, you could contact Drac at lotroplayers.com. The Players Alliance did not receive any emails this week, but if you'd like to send us one, you can send it to podcast at lotroplayers.com. You can also follow us on Twitter. The Players Alliance at Players Alliance, Lotro Players at Lotro Players, Arendis at Arendis, Pineleaf at Pineleaf Needles, Sanswinda at Sanswinda, Terry Edwin at Terry Edwin, Guarendis at Guarendis, Calabathian at Calabathian, and Krister is currently piloting his Battle Balrog for Merc Company.
That's right. I'm getting paid good too.
The Players Alliance has 2 shows. On Wednesdays at 7 p.m. Eastern Time, we have DDO Players News, and on Saturdays at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time, we have LOTRO Players News. You can join us for our shows at lotroplayers.com/live. And that is all for tonight, and this is Pineleaf Needles reminding you to skirmish responsibly.